Episode 22 of The Messenger, the Rachel Cancer Scam. I've spent a lot of time talking about the legal issues that are happening surrounding Mark and Rachel. I haven't even gotten into the divorce drama or the lawsuits that Mark has filed against Rachel for her various behaviors. Now, as we get into this episode, I want to explain a few things to you. There are three important things you're going to need to remember. The first one is an easy one, and that's the name Dan Dow. Dan is the district attorney for San Luis Obispo County. Prior to this podcast, I followed Dan on social media. I'm a fan. I think he's a law and order guy. I think he's done a good job, especially in how they handled the Kristen Smart case. That case, like many, a tragic true crime story. Kristen was a student at Cal Poly in SLO. Her life cut short by a monster named Paul Flores. He was arrested. He was jailed. He was ultimately tried and convicted. And he is where he belongs, in prison. And Dan Dow handled that case beautifully. There's a phenomenal podcast that was also put together by a guy named Chris Lambert about that case. It's called Your Own Backyard, and you should find it if you haven't already. Now, the second thing to remember is the name Steve Boyett, Detective Steve Boyett of the Paso Robles Police Department. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see in a few moments what I refer to as irrefutable evidence in this matter involving Mark and Rachel in the Domestic Violence Restraining Order. There's a report from the Pinger Corporation. Pinger owns two separate phone apps. One is called Text Free. The other is called Burner. Both allow consumers to send texts from a number that's not registered to them. It's a handy tool if you want to remain anonymous. And the third thing you need to keep in mind is that there are two separate cases involving Mark and Rachel. The first of which is the one I'll discuss here today. That is the Domestic Violence Restraining Order, or DVRO. It's the acronym. The other matter involves evidence in a case against Mark, which revolves around material and evidence collected for this DVRO. And that led to charges against Mark and this hearing for the extension of the DVRO, the topic of this episode. Rachel was issued that DVRO on April 15th of 2024, based on evidence she provided to the police regarding Mark's treatment of her and the girls. And much of this evidence, it was fabricated. And on next week's episode, I'll take a deep dive into this for you. I've said on our social media and here on the podcast that Mark, he's not completely clean. He's an ex-felon. He did an armed robbery over 30 years ago. He spent 5 years in prison, but that was over 30 years ago, and he's a different man now. Rachel, she was humiliated when she was exposed. All four daughters learned about Russ and the scam she ran on me within the same week. 5 days, actually. The day her scam was exposed to me, I was on a call with all four daughters and Mark. The girls, they were stunned. Not only had their mother been living two secret lives by cheating, she had done it repeatedly over the course of their marriage. And she created a variety of different careers: helicopter pilot, airline pilot, lawyer, trauma nurse. Rachel, she was busy. There are just no words, as one might say. Rachel was caught with Russ on December 18th of 2023. And on December 20th, her scam with me was exposed. This was not a good week for Rachel. As a matter of fact, this police report from the Atascadero PD from the day she was caught with me, December 20th of 2023, Rachel, as she always did, threatened self-harm. It was Madison that called the police that day when Rachel said she was going to carry out her plan. She reported to the officer that Rachel told Mark, "I'm going to kill myself."
She had pretended to try and kill herself by driving off the 41 in the middle of the night, and my dad and I had gone driving in the rain to go and rescue her because we genuinely thought she was drunk driving on the 41 about to kill herself the same day that we had found all this stuff out.
Now, under ordinary circumstances, this would be alarming. But this isn't real self-harm. This is Rachel self-harm. In the months following the relationship with me and Russ being exposed, Rachel had been working to try to reconcile and save what remained of that marriage to Mark. I'm going to dig into the text messages that Rachel was alleged to have received from Mark. What you'll hear is difficult to comprehend when you think about the issue at hand here. You're about to hear a clip from a conversation between Rachel and Mark, which was recorded on March 30th, 2024, just 2 weeks before Rachel filed for that restraining order.
Why do they need to know that?
Why wouldn't they? They're gonna know anyway.
Why?
Because they're going to. Because
you're gonna tell them.
I don't hide the truth from my kids. I'm not going to do it. Okay? Dad, why did you and mom split up? Well, this is what happened, girls. This is what I found out, and this is why we're no longer together.
So just take them, Mark, because they're never going to trust me again.
They would if you came clean and told them the truth. Why wouldn't it matter? See, that's where you're wrong.
Everybody in my life has turned their back on me.
Nobody's turned your back on... Nobody.
Everybody.
Nobody. I haven't.
Yes, you have.
No, I have not turned my back on you. I didn't leave the house and say, hey, fuck you, deal with this shit on your own. I'm the one that's paying for you to go to counseling. I'm doing whatever I can to help you. I'm talking to you every day. But you just keep lying to me, and it wears on you after a while.
Rachel was doing her poor me act. Oh, Mark, just take the girls. They're better off with you. I'm thinking that when you lie to your entire family about cancer, repeatedly, when you marry two people at the same time, when you have issues like that, you've got a credibility problem. When you fake pregnancy, cancer with different men, when you commit identity theft against your own daughter, you end up with a credibility problem. And when you claim that your second daughter was a product of a vicious sexual assault, and you know actually who the father is because you had an affair with him, people start to turn their backs on you. When Rachel realized that Mark had had enough, shortly after that recording was made, on March 30th of 2024, she had to go with Plan B. Rachel heard Mark say to her that he was going to tell the girls. They would then learn the depths of her grifting, her lying, her conning, all of it. She was never going to let that happen. Instead, she filed for the DVRO on April 15th of 2024, the day after she absconded from the marital home with her 3 minor children. Now, this hearing was on Friday, August 29th. This was the hearing for the extension of the restraining order that was issued 1.5 years ago. What Rachel outlines here on page 2, among other things, is that on July 31st, 2024, she received a text message that said, "I've been thinking about my how for a while now. I think I'll make it quick and let you die slow. I think I'll have it done and then strip you naked because I know how much you hate to be naked. This way everyone will see you laying there naked when they find you, quick and painful, so you won't be expecting anything. It's just going to happen when you're not expecting it." She indicated that the message was from an unknown number. She went on to say, "I believe Mark uses a new number with each text message that he sends like this so that it's more difficult to trace the messages back to him. A true and accurate copy of those messages is here for you to see." This is a report created by Detective Steve Boyett of the Paso Robles PD. It's Paso Robles Police Department Supplement number 9, and it shows that number that texted Rachel, 978-222-5563. It was assigned to Pinger for text-free on July 31st at 6:32 p.m. You can see here on July 31st at 6:34 p.m., just 2 minutes after she had the number assigned to her phone, she received that message. Is she so inept as to create a burner number at 6:32 p.m. and just 2 minutes later send herself a threatening text message from that very same number? The report indicates that Rachel received this message not once, but twice. This next section is the next paragraph. It says that on July 31st, 2024, at 6:51 p.m., just 17 minutes after Rachel's phone received the first text message from that very same number, another message came through. It was nearly identical, and it had some minor changes. Why did Rachel's phone show nearly the identical message twice in 17 minutes? And why was the first one deleted from her phone when police looked at her phone? Boyett indicated the discrepancies. Noticing the differences between the two texts, Boyett says, he again reviewed the report where her phone was only photographed, and that picture and text only showed that she received the second text. This doesn't match with the subpoenaed records from Pinger. He writes, again, this was found to be highly suspicious. This report was signed and stamped on March 20th, 2025, 6 months after Mark was arrested for doing things like sending texts to Rachel that were threatening. This report, which included a host of other information, was forwarded to the SLO DA's office, Dan Dow's office. Now, not only did the DA not investigate the subpoenaed Pinger report, but insult to injury, they didn't take into account the report from the Central Coast Crime Lab, which was submitted to them. That indicated that Mark never had either Pinger app, text-free, or the burner app, nor did his devices ever show any of the life-threatening text messages that Rachel said came from him. This is included in Paso Robles Supplement 5. One other piece of information, which is damning, that came out of this group of supplements, is that Rachel tried at that point in September of 2024 to shut my social media down and my podcast down, which had not yet come out. She told Boyett and others that I was making false accusations on my Instagram page, stating that there are a lot of things on that page that have twisted stuff, like he's telling everyone that I said I was a lawyer. I never, ever pretended to be a lawyer. I never told that to a soul. He's saying that I had cancer. I never had cancer. I never told anyone in my life that I had cancer. A few weeks later, Boyett wrote that he spoke with Rachel's sister, Sherry, who stated that Rachel told her entire family that she attended law school and that she had cancer. These supplements to their report were sent and signed on March 20th, sent to Dan Dow's office. Now, keep in mind the tape I played for you of Mark and Rachel arguing was recorded just 10 days from that period of time, on the 30th of March. On one hand, what's at stake here is very simple. Should Rachel be granted a permanent restraining order, permanent order of protection, that would prevent Mark from ever seeing his 3 minor children again. Now, on to the hearing on August 29th. First to take the stand, Detective Steve Boyett from the Paso Robles Police Department. This is the same Detective Boyett that wrote those reports a year and a half ago, same guy that arrested Mark back in September of last year. That arrest happened at gunpoint in what's called a felony traffic stop. A lot of police cars and a helicopter. And Mark sent to jail. Mark is still wearing an ankle monitor as a result of this. Unfortunately, we couldn't tape the proceedings on August 29th, and I don't have the ability to show you a tape or let you hear any tape, but I'll give you some of the highlights of his testimony. And then I'll share with you what Rachel said under oath immediately after Boyett testified. Boyett was asked by Mark's attorney to confirm his role and responsibilities in the investigation for the case that led to the arrest of Mark and these charges that went to the SLO DA's office. Boyett indicated that he was responsible for supervising the detectives in this case. He spoke about one of their detectives, Elizabeth Place. She submitted to Boyett the report that was subpoenaed from Pinger. He indicated that he got some of that data and he synthesized it himself. He was asked by Mark's attorney how many texts were reviewed by him personally in connection with this case. And he said hundreds. He reviewed several devices and indicated that not all text messages were pertinent to the investigation, but hundreds of messages were reviewed. He was asked by Mark's attorney who first provided the texts. He said those were provided via a police report that was taken at the patrol level. And then when the case came up to the Detective Bureau, Boyett indicated that he reviewed those reports and read some of those text messages at that point in time. He was asked if the messages were shown to him directly or if they were actually screenshots. He indicated they were screenshots, and there were less than 10 of those in the report. He was asked if he saw the original device, and he indicated that he had not, and he was never in possession of the SIM card of Rachel's phone either. Mark's attorney asked Detective Boyett if he conducted a forensic examination to determine the originating IP address for those text messages. He indicated that he did. The report was sent to the Central Coast Crime Lab. They also subpoenaed the Pinger records. He was asked to discuss his findings and the findings in the Pinger report, which point to the messages most likely coming from Rachel and not from Mark. During this time, there were a few objections from Rachel's attorney. The attorney continued to wonder about the validity of this data. Boyett subpoenaed the report from Pinger. Boyett employed the Central Coast Crime Lab, but her lawyer argued that these reports were not certified. What's interesting here is that the police report that Rachel filled out was good enough for Judge Duffy in Paso Robles Family Court to award Rachel the initial extension of the DVRO. That led to Mark's arrest. But the fabricated evidence that Rachel had used, it shouldn't be lost on you that this information was never verified or never certified. The information Rachel submitted, of course.